Hi everyone, this is John. Welcome back to another episode of the Subcontinent. Our program aims to address important issues in the region of South Asia which affect the governments, people, organizations, and the region as a whole. We will try to explain, discuss, analyze, and break down controversies surrounding them and try to have some external perspectives from experts and people.
In this edition of the Subcontinent, we will talk about Chabahar port in southeastern Iran and its significance for the Indian economy and politics. We shall also discuss India's prospects and challenges in the oceanic port.
Chabahar has been a key connectivity project for India because it can connect India to Afghanistan and beyond via Iran. India has big plans for Chabahar and has recently accelerated its efforts to make the project fully operational. But New Delhi should take into consideration a great deal of factors, such as the railway networks of Asia and the cost-benefit analysis of the ongoing construction projects in the port, as well as the repercussions of the comprehensive deal between Iran and China.
Located on the Makran coast of Iran's southeastern Sistan and Balochistan province, next to the Gulf of Oman and at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz, Chabahar Oceanic Port consists of two separate ports, each with several berths, Shahid Kalantari and Shahid Beheshti. India and Iran first agreed on plans to further develop Shahid Beheshti port in 2003, but the project was stalled mainly due to US sanctions. In 2016, Tehran and New Delhi signed another bilateral agreement to create a momentum for the development of the strategic port. According to the deal, India would refurbish one of the 10 berths at Shahid Beheshti port and reconstruct container handling facility at the port.
For India, the Chabahar port is of great importance since it will allow from India's west coast, which is a major manufacturing and exporting area, to send stuff not only to Iran and Afghanistan, but beyond through the Caucasia, to the Caspian Sea, into Russia. I think that was the long-term plan that exists, and this is like, it is not quite like China's Belt and Road initiative or anything like that, but this is also an opening up of West for India.
The agreement entailed $8 billion investment in Chabahar port and its special economic zone, including an aluminum smelter and a urea-making facility. In December 2018, Indian company Ports Global Limited took over the port operations, and as of August 2020, the port has handled 1.2 million tons of cargo and 82,000 containers. India also used the port to send 75,000 tons of wheat to Afghanistan as part of the humanitarian aid amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
Chabahar is at the junction of important trade corridors in Asia, with the potential to serve as a connectivity hub from all directions along the east-west and south-north lines. However, the port is facing some challenges because for the transit of goods to be effective, the port should also be connected to the railroad network of the region. This means that all the regional players may have to prioritize their aligned interests rather than their rivalries.
Chabahar can provide an alternative route for trade between India and Afghanistan and accelerate and extend India's reach to Asian, European, and Middle Eastern markets. It is 800 kilometers closer to the border of Afghanistan than Pakistan's Karachi port. As a fulcrum of connectivity to Central Asia, Chabahar route will also reduce India's shipment cost to the region by 60% and drop the shipment time to half. India is also counting on a 900-kilometer railway line that would connect Chabahar to the Hajigak region in central Afghanistan, which contains Asia's largest deposit of iron ore. The railway to Hajigarh can significantly increase India's trade because it connects to the north-south transport corridor, a 7,200-kilometre-long multi-mode network of ship, rail and road route for moving freight between India, Iran, Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Russia, Central Asia, Turkey and Europe. With links to Bandar Abbas Port and Chabahar Port, Kabul is no longer dependent on Pakistan to reach the outer world. This also gives India access to Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. India and Afghanistan also plan to extend rail route from Herat to Mazar-e-Sharif that is already linked with Uzbekistan and Tajikistan via rail as well as with other Central Asian nations via road routes.
Iran, Afghanistan and India should concentrate very much in developing Chabahar port into a major hub for trade from entire Asia, particularly Southeast Asia and even part of East Asia and South Asia, and connecting that with Iran, Afghanistan and Central Asia and beyond. And this will make Chabahar port as important a port as Gwadar port is going to be, or I think it's more than Bandar Abbas. This will be more important for the Asian, I would say, connectivity. And it will benefit all the countries, the region as a whole, because Central Asia's stability is as important to Afghanistan and Iran as Iran and Afghanistan's prosperity is good for Central Asia.
India is faced with many other challenges to actualize its aspirations in Chabahar and is deeply concerned about losing the competition to China, especially after Beijing's agreement with Tehran. Even before the deal, China had already invested a great deal of money in Pakistan's Gwadar port, Chabahar's sister port that is often earnestly seen as a regional rival. Iran had even proposed to connect Chabahar with Gwadar.
Dismayed by the draft of China's 25-year agreement with Iran and hefty investment in Pakistan's Gwadar port, New Delhi felt the need for a more robust foothold in Chabahar and moved to speed up the implementation of the project. India's greater attention to ties with Iran is obviously seen by the back-to-back visits of the country's defense and foreign ministers to Tehran. Finally, India cancelled a $30 million contract with Shanghai Zhenhua Industries for heavy cranes, citing delays by the Chinese company in supplying the equipment ordered in 2017. Following a new tender for cranes with 65-ton capacity required for moving heavy cargo, the rail-mounted quay cranes were procured from an Italian company and delivered to the port around mid-January. Among the obstacles in India's path to realize Chabahar as the anchor for the expansion of economic relations is the sanctions imposed on Iran by the United States. Although Chabahar port has been granted a waiver, Washington's measures against Tehran are detrimental to economic relations, creating more setbacks for New Delhi and further rapprochement by its arch-rivals China and Pakistan.
While the focus and thrust are mainly on connectivity and geopolitics, it is probably the economy that can make the countries of the region interested in the projects to develop Chabahar port. Cooperation and inclusion of potential stakeholders such as Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, as well as Afghanistan, have already boosted international calls to expedite the projects.
The first trilateral meeting between India, Iran and Uzbekistan on the joint use of Chabahar port that was held virtually in mid-December marked a quick move in diplomacy. It was held a few days after it was proposed by Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev during a virtual summit with Premier Narendra Modi. The next trilateral is already in the works with Afghanistan. Uzbekistan is Central Asia's most populous nation with ample reserves of uranium, gold, coal and oil. It can increase and facilitate its exports thanks to the port. Tashkent's interest in Chabahar port marks a flexing point in India's efforts to build a communication route to Afghanistan and central India that outflanks Pakistan. Kazakhstan is also keen on involvement in Chabahar port. The envoy of the landlocked country to India has said the process has already initiated. Chabahar port also provides direct access to India's Farkhor airbase in Tajikistan, another landlocked country in Central Asia which can benefit from the port. Moreover, several conferences and exhibitions have been planned to gather representatives from the Eurasian countries to the port. New Delhi's proposal to observe Chabahar Day was widely welcomed by all the involved parties.
The significance, as I said, is that India's access to West. And West, when I say West, it's not Europe per se, which is, of course, but Iran, Afghanistan, all situated of India's West, and eventually to Central Asia, at least particularly countries like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and these can be accessed to Chabahar port and then to Iran and then through Caspian Sea, or the railroad that the Iran has built all along the western coast of Caspian Sea. India can send its material and goods through there, and at the same time, it is it's a two-way route, so things can come in from Central Asia, Afghanistan, Iran, and Russia and Europe as well to India, and this is going to enhance India's capability to develop an economic and trade relationship with its Western countries, which they don't have any other way of doing it, other than, as I said, you can do it by, they're doing it by Suez, but it is awfully expensive, and it takes enormous amount of time. This will cut down the time significantly, and it will also develop a very strong and quick relationship with the Central Asian countries, with which India has only air connection, nothing else.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now to have more insight and analysis, we are joined by Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed. He's a scholar and lecturer at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Dr. Ahmed, welcome to the show. So, what are India's hopes and plans for Chabahar port?
Yeah, this Chabahar port, as far as our economic ties with Iran is concerned, it's very important. In the sense, India as well as Iran, both the countries together, but mainly India had been very deeply interested in developing this port for evolving a better bilateral economic cooperation between India and Iran. That's why it can be said that it's a dream project for India, in fact, and no doubt Iran had also been equally interested in having this project, and both the countries had been working for over several years in making this project functional. There are other countries also, in fact, involved in the whole plan, the role of Afghanistan, as well as the role of Central Asian countries. Even the role of Russia had been important. And if I recall correctly, all of them are working together for several years, and we had a big hope as far as this project is concerned.
So it's an important project and many other countries are involved. You mentioned Afghanistan. What does Chabahar port mean for the relations between India and Afghanistan?
Okay, of course, frankly speaking, India had always been interested in having good relationship with Afghanistan. We have seen the role of India had been very major in the reconstruction of Afghanistan, particularly after the turmoil and all that Afghanistan had been subjected to. So it was some 20 years back. I had been in the ministries. I have worked in the ministries. I have seen on the certain occasions that India had been contributing well to see that Afghanistan's economic condition improved. Afghanistan was passing through a very bad phase, and still there are many more issues. As you said, that why it is important, because Afghanistan is important for us from the geopolitical point of view also. We are interested in Afghanistan. Government of India is interested in Afghanistan. Indian trade partners, businessmen, they all are interested in Afghanistan. But we do not have a suitable route to Afghanistan. It can only be possible through Chabahar port, because Pakistan is a factor between India and Afghanistan, and Pakistan never encouraged the idea of going to Afghanistan or having a better economic ties or better trade relationship as far as the route is concerned. Where is the route? We don't have the suitable route because of the discouragement policy on the part of the Pakistan. Had this not been there, obviously it was very easy to move our goods, move our containers, move our promote our trade and commerce through land routes only. But it's not possible. Many times India has tried its best. Indian government has shown its magnanimity, especially at the time of our former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He took a delegation to Pakistan. But it has not worked, in the sense there had not been encouraging response from Pakistan. Pakistan always discouraged the fact that India and Afghanistan should not come closer. But I think as far if this Chabahar port is made functional, it will be very easy for India to have better economic relationship, better trade and commerce, better bilateral relations in terms of economy through Chabahar port. Means through entering Iran through Chabahar port and going right up to Afghanistan will be the superb idea. And the Afghanistan will be benefited. Of course, India will be benefited, and the role of Iran will certainly be very important here. Iran is also going to be benefited. This can be a good combination of the three countries.
Dr. Ahmed, our team has compiled a few sections of the media coverages in this regard. So I would appreciate that before continuing, we could take a look at it and then move on.
In a meeting with Pakistan ambassador to Iran in mid-December, the Director General of Sistan-Balochistan Ports and Maritime Department said that based on their needs and interests, Pakistan and other neighboring countries of Iran can invest in Chabahar Port without any restrictions. Chabahar Port is hub of bonding ports of the region with one another, he said, adding that strengthening connection of countries and their mutual cooperation is one of the missions of this port. Both India and Uzbekistan seek to achieve a bilateral trade turnover of $1 billion, but have actually reached only 1/3 of that landmark. A major factor inhibiting the development of closer trade and economic relationship is the absence of economic and efficient service connectivity. Both sides believe that the Chabahar route can be the key to address this problem. India's envoy to Uzbekistan, Manish Prabhat, has said that Chabahar can become a fulcrum of transit between India and Central Asia. A 70% discount on tariffs and lowering transit costs through Chabahar port have been so effective that Chabahar loading and unloading figure has reached to 2 million tons, while it was merely 200,000 tons just a few years ago, according to Iran's Ports and Maritime Organization. Many of the country's neighbors are currently choosing Chabahar port as their main trade route. The goal of the port is now to attract regional markets, including India and Afghanistan, and also the Commonwealth of Independent States, which can use Chabahar port to transit their goods with an average of 70% discount. Speculation is rife that the $400 billion deal between Tehran and Beijing could pave the way for China's investment in Iranian ports, including the strategic Chabahar port. India has high stakes in Chabahar and has been genuinely worried about China gaining foothold there, especially after unconfirmed reports that Iran dropped New Delhi from the Zahedan rail project and started negotiating a long-term deal with Beijing. It comes even at a time of heightened tensions between India and China following a series of clashes between the two armies in border regions.
Welcome back, Dr. Ahmed. So continuing from the previous question, you said that Afghanistan is important because of geopolitics, economics, and of course, there's a huge Pakistan factor as well. But what about the United States and what happened during the elections? How will the Biden administration and its decision on Iran sanctions influence the future of Chabahar port?
No, of course, due to sanctions, anybody can see that there are certain things it's not going well. Had there not been sanctions, India and Iran could have worked more effectively. But due to sanctions, not only sanctions, but due to some restrictions also, and especially in terms of, we have some few years back, we have seen that payment was a big problem. Due to sanctions, the payment process is also affected. The banking thing is also affected. So India tried his best to do well and just to overcome those shortcomings, but still there was there. Had this sanction not been in Iran, obviously India and Iran could have worked more effectively, and the result would have been better.
All right, so I understand that the sanctions are a huge barrier between Iran and India in terms of the Chabahar port. India hopes to keep China away from the Chabahar port. Can it succeed?
You know, it's very clear. Of course, China has no role to play here, to be very frank. In this project, if you look at the project, if you look at the, partner countries, there are, if I recall correctly, there had been around 10 partner countries. Small countries are also there. There are many more Central Asian countries, and they had been working together. The role of China is not there. So it's not fair to say that India may not be interested in keeping China away. I think China should be away from these things, because this is a project between India and Iran and Afghanistan and the Central Asian countries, and even some country from the Russian part. So where China has the role, China has no role. So we should be very clear on that. China should not try to stop any sort of, progress and development which is taking place or which is emerging out of our mutual interest, our mutual bilateral trade and commerce interest, especially with Iran or Central Asian countries and even Afghanistan. So I don't see that China has a role to play. Why should China should have a space here? China, it's not that India is trying.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our show on the Chabahar port and India's prospects for the port. If you have any questions, concerns, feedbacks or comments, please let us know through our social media accounts, because our team works really hard to make the show as best as possible for you. Until next time, Thank you and goodbye.